Well, it's Barry and Eric again. We're going to do a gun facts tonight about the MAC-10 submachine gun. Now, we're going to do a little history lesson into the MAC-10 and also a little history about me, because I used to make the MAC-10 at RPB Company between 1980 and 82. Now, the gun was designed by Gordon Ingram, and it was owned by a military armament corporation, which was Mitch Rebell's company. Well, they got in some kind of financial trouble, and Wayne Daniel bought the company. I believe it was in '77. I went to work for him in 1980. I made barrels and suppressor parts, and we're going to show you the old open bolt MAC, and we're going to show you the closed bolt Masterpiece Arms gun that they were forced to go to in 1982. That was almost the demise of the company when they had to do that. It's a lot harder to make a gun that's select fire than it is to make an open bolt slam fire gun. This gun does not fire until the round is chambered. The firing pin is built into the bolt face, and we're going to get some B-roll of that in a minute and you'll be able to see it. But RPB was a company that stood for Roby, Pitts, and Brueggerman. They were a leather company. When Wayne moved into the building, he really didn't want to advertise the fact that there was a machine gun company there, so he just kept the name RPB. But that's what it stands for, Roby, Pitts, and Brueggerman. Now, a lot of people said it stood for Rape, Pillage, and Burn, but we're going to get in that later. Now, the first movie that a MAC-10 was ever used in was McHugh. In 1974, John Wayne introduced the MAC-10 to the public. That was the first movie it was ever used in. The first barrels were made by Marlin. They were very high-quality barrels in the beginning. The way the Cobra comes from, you take a Cobra and a manta ray, and you got Cobra. That's where the name comes from. Combination of the two creatures. Also in McHugh, it was the first time a car was ever flipped with an explosive charge. Up until that time, they would hit a concealed ramp or something. But in a McHugh, they used an explosive charge under the car to flip it when he was being chased on the beach. I wrote this little poem a long time ago about the MAC-10. It's got a lot of my history in it. You made a manta ray with a deadly snake, and the Ingram gun is the baby they'll make. The MAC-10 gun is steeped in lore. They say it's the gun that made the 80s roar. It's got a phosphate finish that's black and mean. Sprays hot lead, it's a killing machine. In the good guy's hands, it's the bad guy's woes. It's hung a lot of tags around a lot of big toes. In '74, it made its movie debut, wielded by a man named Lon McHugh. He riddled 2 cars and 4 bad men, took a bite out of crime with a big MAC-10. Lon let loose a burst that would curl your hair. The bad guy's feet flew up in the air. He landed with a thud sprawl flat of his back, the hapless victim of a big Mac attack. In 1980, I took my turn, working for a company called Rape, Pillage, and Burn. I turned out barrels and suppressor parts. The time spent there was dear to my heart. While I was busy working on the MAC-10 gun, my wife gave birth to my firstborn son. The pride was boundless, but I damn near cried. He was born on the day John Lennon died. But as time went on, things soon turned bad. The thought of losing this job really made me sad. At the peak of my joy, the feds cracked down. A solution to the problem just couldn't be found. In 1982, I said goodbye. I walked out the door with a tear in my eye. I left there knowing I'd never get back in. I said so long to the big MAC-10. Well, as we were discussing before, this is a open bolt gun. It fires from an open bolt, fully automatic. This gun was made by Military Armament Corporation. It's a very early gun, serial number 470. A very early gun. Now, some of the design features on this gun were changed later. This uses a different type of retainer for the upper and lower receiver. Now, nobody ever answered this question for me, but when Gordon Ingram designed this gun, he designed it to take M3 grease gun magazines for the M3 grease gun, but you have to cut a 1/16 of an inch off the bottom of it. You have to modify the mags, which this one has been modified, and we're going to get a close-up of that in a minute. Now, this is a 2-stage suppressor, very early model. It's got a rubber coating on it. Very nice suppressor, very quiet. You've got your magazine loading tool here, a detachable wire stock. In a moment we'll have the guns back together and show you how they work. Now, Masterpiece Arms designed the closed bolt gun, but when you go from an open bolt to a closed bolt, you have to add a lot of parts to it. You have to have a separate firing pin spring. This is the early MAC-10 type barrel extension. This is a solid aluminum one. But when this gun was redesigned, it takes just standard grease gun mags. You don't have to change anything. Different pin system to hold the top to the lower, and so on and so forth. But we're going to put the guns back together here in a minute, and we're going to get some close-ups of the internals of these guns. The open bolt guns were set up just like the full automatic gun, but all you had to do to convert them to full auto was break that little stem off right there. That way the disconnector wouldn't work anymore. Now, you don't have select fire when you do that, but if you break that little stem off or grind it off, this spring has no function anymore. That's why the BATF made them change to the closed bolt, because this is too easy to convert. This was my first encounter with the thought police. These are perfectly legal guns, but they're so easy to convert that the BATF made them change it. This is an absolute masterpiece of simplicity. There's no parts in this gun hardly at all. You got a hammer, your safety. What that does, that blocks the trigger from being pulled, and the hammer stays back. Now, some of these guns, people try to monkey around with them. If you try to cut this notch off here, they think it makes the hammer go down, and it will. It disables the gun. But what happens when you do it halfway, it hangs back, and then when the bolt slams forward, it vibrates loose, and you get an uncontrollable burst fire. Guy came in here a couple of months ago, about shot his whole left hand off. The gun went wild on him, and he tried to grab it. The bullets went through his hand. So, and I've had people pawn these things, and they monkey around with that hammer. The hammer's only 19 bucks, so if we ever get one somebody's played with, we can replace it very easily. But this is the ultimate in simplicity. This is absolutely, there's nothing to it. Masterpiece did a fine job on this gun when they redesigned it. Now this gun, unlike the machine gun, this has a separate firing pin spring, and all that. All this is added parts that you have to have for the closed bolt gun. This gun and that gun also will fire without an extractor. They are blowback. The only thing the extractor's for is pulling a dud round out of the chamber or something like that. But these guns will function just fine without an extractor. The top of this gun, they redesigned it. Instead of the top cocker, it's a side cocker. Now, when you load this gun, it's like an Uzi. When you're shooting this gun, this does not move. All this does is pull the bolt back and close it, and when the gun is firing, this isn't moving. So you can actually hold it like this around the housing. There's different barrel extensions for it, the suppressors, of course. On a MAC-10 gun, they had to cut a slot in here, so if you were going to extract a live round, it had to clear it. Well, what they did at Masterpiece, they shortened the extractor. They shortened the ejecting rod and the extractor, and you don't have to have that ugly cut in it.
Here's the cut that Barry was talking about on the machine gun version versus the semi-auto version without the cut.
Alright, the mag loader is a very handy item to have with your, especially with the 30-round grease gun mag. It's not easy to load. Now, the way you properly fire this gun, you pull the bolt back, open bolt, insert the magazine, and you're ready to fire. Now you got a safety button on the bottom. You got your selector on this side. The gun does not chamber around until you pull the trigger. Boom. And as long as you hold the trigger back, it'll just keep slamming them in there until you're out of ammunition. Fire from an open bolt. Of course, with the closed bolt gun, you insert your magazine, you chamber the round, you're ready to fire. Your wire stop goes in here, mash this button, and locks it in. To collapse it, fold it like so, fold this over. That should collapse stock. I have never liked these stocks. Now, when I worked for RPB, they made an attachment here that you could put like an AR solid stock on it. You just take it on and off when you want it. But anytime you see a MAC-10 used in a movie, it's always got the stock closed, because this stock is very flimsy. And it's not very stable when you're shooting it. I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. I hope this video has been entertaining as well as educational for you. This gun brings back a lot of good memories for me. I'd like to thank Thomas D. of Ramona, California for sending me this DVD of Max Atchison, which we worked in very close contact with him at that time. Here's a birthday card for my son from the gang at RPB. That's one of my most prized possessions right there. We've got the Cobra buckle here, left over from the 80s. And if anybody out there used to work at RPB, please contact me here at Moss Pond, because I'd love to hear from you. I know a lot of the guys I work with are no longer with us, but I hope that y'all had a good evening, and we'll catch you next time.